fade. Colors are victorious over the gray. Start to get controlled by the state. For just one day, I wanna forget the value of money and gold. I wanna live life my way and lose my inhibition threshold.
Stage work. Easy.
For just one day.
Got some big ass ears, Dolby. Got some big ass ears and a big nose. Just one day.
For just one day.
You don't like that loud shit, do you? Goldie. You know you don't. Okay, so this morning I had I had a couple experiences this morning, and kind of pissed me off. The one I had this morning. I mean the first one pissed me off. Okay, so basically I was over there by the college. There was a little, I know this is kind of funny, but there's a little town over there by the college. That there was a cute little motel that it was just me and my mom. Oh my God, now the crows are out there. Me and my mom stayed at, and I felt like we were about to go to Austin, from this town to Austin, but I'm not sure about that. That part wasn't real clear. But so it's kind of funny because just a few, about, I don't know, 100 yards, which isn't very far away from the college, the west, going west of the college, was basically a little town. It was actually its own little town, and it was called, the town of Willow. And I think Joel, he got that from that town of Willow Springs. But anyway, so it was this little motel right there in the town of Willow. And like I say, it was just 100 yards away from the college. I'm not very far at all from the college, but it was its own little town. And me and my mom stayed there at this little motel. And the motel was very cute. It was very colorful. There's a bunch of different colors on it. It was very colorful and very cute. The scenario, it lasted a long time, and I gotta hurry up and talk about it because I'm already forgetting some shit. Okay, so we were staying at this motel, and we were walking around for a long time, and we drove there to the motel, and so I remember, like, me and her, we walked up to the front desk people, and they handed us our the luggage, which is kind of weird because it's almost kind of like almost kind of like being at an airport or something where they, well, actually, I guess you hand them the luggage. But in the scenario, the front desk guy, most of the men were like either black. Most of the workers at that motel were either black or some other race, Middle Eastern or something like that. But so yeah, I remember going up to the motel. I mean to the front desk, checking in and everything, and they handed us our luggage. I can't remember how many pieces my mom had, but I had a pretty big piece and a smaller piece of luggage. And so I just kind of proceeded to carry that around and to roll it around the motel as I observed the the amenities and everything in the motel. And several times this happened later in the scenario, but I'll talk about it now. Several times I went into the basketball court and I started shooting hoops. And there was always plenty of basketballs that were aired up and everything, decent basketballs laying around. So I was always, there was normally always a few people in there shooting hoops. So I went in there several times, which that's kind of weird because most motels do not have an indoor basketball, gym or whatever. But in the scenario, there was a basketball. It was almost kind of like a gymnasium was inside the motel. So anyway, so I went in there at least 3 different times, and I shot baskets, and I remember making several baskets and everything. And eventually, later in the scenario, when I went back in there, I was actually playing a game with a group of other people, like running back and forth. And I remember thinking, wow, I'm kind of rusty because I haven't played in a while. And I was flipping the ball back from each hand, like from my left hand to my right hand, from my left hand to my right hand, from my right hand to my left hand. And I just remember thinking, wow, I'm a little rusty, because I hadn't played in a while. And, but later in the scenario too, when I went back in the basketball gym and I shot hoop, I played the actual game with a group of girls and boys. It seemed like it was kind of co-ed. And I had laid my bigger bag over there. I set it down on the floor over there at the side of the wall. And then the next thing I know, it was like stolen, basically. Okay, so anyway, here's the deal. So basically, okay, it took me a while to figure out, because, I did a lot of stuff like that. Me and my mom walked around the motel for a long time. And and like I said, I went in there and played basketball many times or whatever. And it took me a long time to figure out that all of these workers that worked there were basically criminals. They were, they were stealing, they were abducting some of the, the customers. I think they're called something else at a motel, but the customers that stay there, they were abducting them, and they were stealing their stuff, like stealing my bag and stuff. And they were also dealing drugs. I remember that was part of the scenario as well, but I didn't actually see any of that activity. I just knew that they were doing that as well. But anyway, so they all were crooked. And then there was another time when there was 2 older women, and they're pretty good looking for older women. There's 2 older women kind of sitting around on the benches outside of the gymnasium, the basketball gymnasium. And well, at first they kind of liked me and everything, and I talked to them and they seemed nice, and and they said that, or they they thought that I was, a nice person or whatever. Well, that all changed later on, but yeah, so like I talked to them and they seemed really nice and they thought I was a nice person and blah, 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 blah. And then, but that all changed later when I figured out that, all of those assholes that ran the motel, were all evil and stuff. And then that's when I kind of, the last part of the scenario, the last, 40% of the scenario, I was just kind of running around, walking around that place all ballistic and like yelling at people, and then I started, yelling at those two women eventually, to tell them that, because everybody was naive and they didn't see the light. So I was trying to convince everybody that, like all these motherfuckers are, abducting people. They're still in your shit, your bags and stuff. And so that was like the last 40% of the scenario. I was just like really irate and, yelling at the customers and stuff because I was trying to get them to understand, what that place was all about. But they were just kind of oblivious. And then those two women eventually started looking at me like I was some psycho, But at first, like I say, everything was cool, you know what I mean? Because that was before I figured out all of those criminals running that place. And then so eventually, after I played the basketball game or whatever, eventually I realized my bag was gone. And I knew that the hotel had stolen it. And so I went back up to the front desk and they said that they would give me my bag back. And I remember thinking, my wallet was in there and my cell phone was in there. And like, it's like a black dude that came up to the desk, the front desk, and he said that he had my bag and that he would give it back to me and but it was really stolen. And as far as I remember, I never did get it back. But he said he was going to give it back to me, but I knew that it, had been stolen. And so that was a part of this, the scenario. And then another part of the scenario, and like I said, I never got it back because I would remember that part if I got it back. But he said he would give it back to me, acting like they didn't really steal it, but I knew that they did. But there's another part where I went back to the gymnasium and there was some, and these were like white men. There was 4 or 5 white men that came onto the floor. I don't know. They seemed like they were some kind of investigators or something. I guess I called on them or something. I don't know. And then I was trying to tell them, it's like they were some kind of like PIs or something, like private investigators or something. And I tried to tell them that, all these employees here are, are scam artists and stuff, and they're abducting people and blah, 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 and stealing all their stuff. And holding people for, for ransom and blah, 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 blah. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, the motel was just like, it was very different and very cute. Let me try to draw a picture. Okay, what did I do with the pen? Yeah, it was like no motel that I've ever seen before. But, okay, hold on. Okay, so it's like here was, where's Grand? Okay, hold on. Where's Grand Street? Grand, we'll pretend like this is Grand. Well, it don't matter about that, but so like the college is like, that's the college. And then this little bitty town just a few yards away, there's a little bitty town called Willow. and the like here's the college, and then the motel was just right. This whole town was called Willow. It's a few yards away from the college, and then the motel, was just right here. It was kind of a small motel, or at least from the outside it looked small, but from the inside it was big. But yeah, as far as I remember, it's like, but I can't remember the exact decorations or whatever. But it was all these different colors. And Joel has done that before, like little squares of like different colors on the front of the building, like yellow, blue, whatever. It was a very colorful little motel, or maybe it was a hotel. I don't know, either motel or hotel. And it was in this little town of Willow, which, really, there's not no little bitty town there. It would be the whole town of Springfield or whatever. But here's the college, and then there's this little town of Willow, and here's the little motel, and the gymnasium and everything was in there. And of course, in the scenario, it felt very different. It didn't feel like 3D energy. It felt like different dimension energy. It was awesome. But anyway, okay, so the other part of the scenario was eventually my mom had disappeared. And oh yeah. Okay, this part is coming back to me. Eventually, my mom had disappeared. So then I went up to the counter and I said, I need to call my mom. And I said, I need to borrow your cell phone. The front desk people, I said, I need to borrow your cell phone because, you guys stole my bag and my phone was in my bag. So they gave me a phone and I called, I tried to call my mom and it went straight to voicemail a couple times. And it's like I was just in the middle of the motel, kind of leaning down with the cell phone, and I was calling her and it went to like voicemail a few times. And then eventually I called her again and she answered. And it seemed like my stepdad was in the background, and my mom was saying, I've been kidnapped and I'm being held for ransom. And she was trying to tell my dad, oh, just go get $5,000. Like, that's all they want is $5,000, and we'll go ahead and give them $5,000 and blah, 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 blah. And she even said that, they were going to kill her if she didn't give them $5,000. And, but that's all they wanted was $5,000. So that's why my mom was like telling my stepdad in the background, to go ahead and go get the $5,000. And I was thinking to myself, well, that's not very much, I'm sure they could come up with $5,000. But anyway, so my mom was like kidnapped and everything, and being held for ransom, and I never saw her again. I knew she was supposed to come pick me up, and we were supposed to go, to Austin or wherever. And but she never did come back to the motel because she was stuck wherever, with my stepdad and the criminals that were holding her captive or whatever, like for ransom. And then she never did come back to the motel. And then I just proceeded to walk around the motel like all ballistically and trying to yell at the older couple women or whatever. I think they were like a mom and daughter or something. But I was like yelling at them, and then I remember going up to the front desk people and yelling at them, telling them that I want my bag back. And then I told them I'm waiting for my mom so she could come pick me up so we could go, to Texas or whatever. But that never did happen. She never did come back to the motel to pick me up. But I was just like, walking around, running around but ballistically and yelling and shit. Because I knew that they were like, a bunch of crooked people that ran that motel. But going in the basketball gym and stuff, that was kind of fun. And kind of funny how all the, there was always a basketball to find laying around, and they were all very aired up and everything. Because, lots of times Joel will make the basketball like all limp or make it weird shaped, and it'll be flat. It wouldn't be quite aired up or whatever. but not in this scenario. But yeah, it was like a scenario that really pissed me off. And I know I'm probably forgetting a few details here and there. But basically, it lasted a long ass time. I mean, I was in the scenario for many, many, many hours. And, okay, let me think, see, make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Oh, but anyway, I could kind of draw the layout of the inside. So inside the motel, okay, hold on, Willow, okay. Willow, like, let's see, okay, so like, okay. So here's like where we came in off like the parking lot, and the front desk people were like over here. Front desk. And this is where we kind of came in, started wandering around, and the basketball gymnasium was like way over here. Basketball gymnasium. And I had laid my bag right here. And the basketball goal was right there. And right there. And that's where right over here, those 5 PI men, private investigator men came in, and I started talking to them at one point on the basketball court right here. And that's where I laid my bag, and then it ended up disappearing. But I knew I had 2 distinct bags, a big bag and a smaller bag. And I never, got them back. And then there was one couple, there was like a little bitch out here, and they were just kind of sitting there and stuff. And eventually there was more people walking around here. But I was just running around ballistically and yelling at people, about the last 40% of the scenario. Because I figured it out, what they were all about and stuff. And then I remember going outside at one point, outdoors, which would have been way back out here. And it seemed like it was getting kind of dusk. I do remember going outside, seeing the parking lot, and I remember it getting to be about dusk because I kept hoping my mom was going to drive up and come and get me. But she never did because she was being held ransom, because she was abducted. And then back up here, that's where the black man or whatever come up here, and I would talk to them. But anyway, yeah, so, I mean, it was just a terrible experience. You know what I mean? I mean, it was still fun, but just, haven't had a weird one like that in a long time. But I gotta talk about that second one I had. It was pretty fun. The second one was pretty fun, too. But yeah, I know I'm forgetting some stuff but if anything significant comes back, I can write it down. But it was crazy experience. Okay, where's the, hold on. Okay, so then it's like I woke up at like, I think it was about 4 a.m. And then I went back to sleep, 4, cause I know I woke up at least 2 to 3 times, but I don't think I woke up again after 4 a.m. as far as I remember. So I would have had the second experience after 4 a.m. And, I gotta hurry up and talk about it too before I start forgetting. Kind of funny. I was in another little town called Dearborn, Missouri. Yeah, it's called Dearborn. But okay. And I actually, okay, wait, hold on. Hold on. I did have, I did, I think Joe got this from, because I actually did, look up this one person I knew back when I was like 31 years old. And I was wondering if she was living back in that small town, the town where she was born and raised or whatever. Dearborn, Missouri. But, all these people are alcoholics. She was an alcoholic. So she's probably dead, but I didn't find that on the internet. It just looked like, it just kind of brought up her addresses or whatever. So I did have thoughts not too long ago, like, I wonder if she moved back to that little town or whatever. I think she called it Dearborn, Missouri or something like that. But anyway, and I knew that her mom, well, I mean, a few months ago when I looked her up, I know that her mom probably still isn't alive, because she was old back then. And she was a smoker and everything. I doubt she's still alive. So I had all those thoughts and stuff, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago or something like that. Okay, so I guess that's why Joe gave me this experience. So basically, okay, so in real life, there was the little house where the mom lived in Dearborn, Missouri, and then just several yards up the road was the house where the sister lived, and it was very, very, very haunted. Okay, I don't know if they're really ghosts or aliens posing as ghosts or what. I think ghosts might be real, but I don't know, man. It seems like if there's ghosts, it seems like they don't really go away. I mean, aliens kind of go away. So I don't know. I don't know if they were really ghosts or what, but that place is freaking haunted. That old 1890 house. That's where the sister lived. She rented it, paid like $600 a month. Back 20 years ago. And like I say, the mom lived down at the little house. But Kathy, finally moved away and moved to Kansas City or whatever. But, so the mom just lived by herself, with the dog or whatever, in this small town of Dearborn, Missouri. So in the scenario, it was like the same situation. Now, I never did go into the mom's house in the scenario. The scenario was, the whole scenario, I was in the haunted house, the sister's house, this old 1800, I mean, hold on. 18, yeah, it was like, it was built like in 1890. Did I say that right? When was I born? 1972. Well, anyway, it was over 100-year-old house. Now it's probably about 130 years old or 140 years old. And like I say, it was very, very haunted. And when I went in there in real life, when I went up on the porch, the screened-in porch, I was like, oh my God. I told them, this was in real life when me and Kathy went up there to visit the sister. I told them, man, this is going to take a long time to explain, I think. I told them that that I felt, you could feel a presence. Now, this was in real life. Right when I went into and I already knew, Kathy said it was haunted and everything before we went up there. And when I went into the screened-in porch, you can feel a freaking presence, man. And there was at least 3 ghosts in there. A man, woman, and then a little girl down in the basement in a pink dress. Okay, so anyway, okay, so in the scenario, I still, in the scenario, I told that to the sister again. And it's kind of like reliving that experience or something in the scenario. But it wasn't. It was still present time. In the scenario, it was still present time. And still, in the scenario, I had told them, remember, 20 years ago, you said that there were ghosts in here. And I asked them if they were still doing activity in here. But at this present time, they were all ignoring it and acting like it didn't really exist anymore. Okay, so anyway, so the scenario started out basically, but like I say, one point in the scenario, I did tell the sister that. I said, remember when I was on the front porch that I could feel a presence of those entities that were in the house and blah, 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 blah. And then I told her, remember when I went into the parlor, I could totally feel a presence in the parlor. And that's when I told her that in this scenario. And in real life back then, I told, at the time, like her son, the sister's son, was living in the house, and he was already like 21 years old. And I told him that I could feel a presence in the parlor. And he's like, oh, that's where I saw the woman and man with the old, 1800s looking hat on, or 1800s, man and woman standing there in the parlor, in the doorway. That's where he saw them standing there in the doorway after I said, that I felt a presence in the parlor. And at one point in time, he said that he actually saw them standing there. And so all of that was in this scenario. Okay, so basically it started out, me walking around her old, 1800s house, like the sister would, Kathy, when she would go back to Dearborn, Missouri, she would stay with the mom for several days, and I stayed there several days too. And eventually, we would go up and visit the sister in this 1800s house or whatever. And let's see. Okay, the Vell Mansion was built in 1850. 1850. And then that flour mill mansion across the street, Vell Mansion, that was even older than the Vell Mansion. But yeah, so anyway, this house was also over 100 years old. Yeah, so it started out in the back bedroom. There was like a back bedroom, and very, very, so it started off basically, we were lingering around Kathy's room. In the scenario, it was, let's see, 30, okay, in the scenario, it was 19 years later, of course, because it was present day, 2022. And so Kathy and the brother, the whole family, the mom had already died off. The mom and dad, the mom, the sister, Kathy, the sister, and her brother had moved in with the sister, the older sister. And she was the one that was renting the house and had been for a long, long time. They had already moved in with her. Kathy's brother and Kathy had moved in with the sister during this present time. And her bedroom was, it was kind of in the back of the house. Okay, hold on. And here's the front door. Here's where the screened in porch is. And that's where you can feel a big old presence of entities in that freaking 1800s house. Okay, and so in the scenario, not in real life, in the scenario, there was a big old bedroom right here, and this was Kathy's bedroom. The basement was over here. The basement, oh my God, you talk about creepy as fucking fuck. And that's where the nephew said that he saw the girl in the pink dress down in the basement. And the basement was all dirt. It was a dirt basement, and it was creepy as fuck. And in the scenario, I wanted to go down there, but in the scenario, I never went down there. The kitchen was pretty big. The kitchen was all right here, and it was pretty damn big. And the basement was right here. And then the big old living room. There's the it was hardwood floors and everything. Here's where the screened in front porch is, and then over here is a big ass living room. The kitchen was big. This big old living room was pretty big. This was all living room. This was all living room right here. Living room. And like I say, over here, this is the big old long kitchen. And then this is where the basement, the dirt basement was, and the stairs went down into the basement right here. But in the scenario, this is all in real life, how it was laid out. The parlor was over here. The parlor, and then the niece also was living in the house back 19 years ago, and her bedroom was right here. And she would always, like, in the middle of the night, run down to the grandma's house to where Kathy's mom lived, because the activity would scare her, and they would be screwing with her at 2 a.m. in the morning or whatever. And this is where she slept, in this bedroom. Okay, this is all how it was laid out in real life. And then, in the scenario, it was, a little bit different. In the scenario, there was another big bedroom right here. But Kathy's bedroom was right here. And Kathy was very OCD, so in the scenario, I looked around her bedroom, and everything was still clean and everything, but I was just thinking, like, wow, I can't believe you can handle living in this bedroom, because everything is there was so much stuff in it. It was so cluttery. Very, very cluttery. But it was very, very still neat and clean and everything, but just a whole bunch of shit. And in real life, Kathy was very OCD, like more OCD than me. And so in the scenario, she was living in the house, and the brother was living in the house, and the sister was living in the house, and it seemed like there even could have been 1 or 2 more people living in the house. But so I proceeded to talk about how I started talking to the sister. The sister was like standing around over here near, where was she standing around? She was, let me think. There was like, it was kind of like a hallway. She was standing around in a hallway right here. And like I say, at first, the scenario, it started, we were just all lingering around Kathy's bedroom. And, she was telling me how they all moved in to the sister's house, and that the mom way down in Dearborn, Missouri died. Way down the street in the house that she used to live in, she died off and everything. The mother died off. And so everybody lived with the sister now. And so I proceeded to tell the sister, I was like, well, don't you remember those ghosts that lived in the house? I'm like, aren't they still here? And I was like, don't you remember the 2 ghosts that lived in the parlor? And she just kind of wanted to, like, ignore all of that and deny that it ever existed. And I was like, aren't you still having activity and blah, 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 blah? And she just kind of acted like, no, they weren't having any more activity. And I told her, don't you remember the niece which I guess was her daughter. The niece used to run out of the house and go to the grandma's house down the street, because she would be scared of the activity, because they would be tampering with her or whatever in the middle of the night. And I asked her about all of that, and they just kind of all denied it, and they just, acted like that activity didn't really exist anymore. And I was like, well, don't you remember in the parlor, there was those 2 ghosts in the parlor. But the funny thing is, I okay, this is really weird, but it almost seemed like I didn't see those two ghosts standing there in real life, when I went into the parlor. I only felt them. But at one point in time, the nephew saw them. And, but it was funny because in the scenario, I saw them plain as day. Like a man, and a woman standing there. Like visions in my head, I saw them plain as day. And then the guy had like the old 1800s-year-old hat on or whatever. 1800s looking hat on. And I clearly saw them, 1800s or 200-year-old, people standing there, like the man and the woman. I saw them clearly. So that was kind of weird, because then when I woke up, it made me wonder if that's exactly what they look like in real life, those ghosts. If that's exactly what that nephew had saw in the parlor, those same two ghosts. Because in the scenario, I saw them. So that was kind of weird. And they were plain as day, standing there or whatever. And, but I remember telling Kathy I would like to go down in the basement, but we never did go down into the basement. And then, she showed me this other bedroom right here, and there was nothing but Christmas stuff. Santa Claus, like stuffed Santa Claus, and nothing but Christmas decorations. Like 80% filled up. This whole room was like 80% filled up, full of Christmas decor and decorations and Christmas trees. And this is all Christmas stuff in here. And it was just very, very cluttery. And I just remember thinking, I just can't believe, Kathy could live here, because she's so OCD. And she wasn't a cluttery person at all. She was very, very clean freak and everything. And, okay, wait, let me think. Because, what was that other scenario that I just talked about with all the Christmas decorations? Oh my God. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I haven't I did already talk about that experience. I just haven't posted it yet. Back to the mansion on East Sunshine Street. So Joel put that in the scenario again, all these Christmas decorations in this bedroom. And like I say, I just remember thinking, I can't believe Kathy could live like that. Well, she actually lived in her own bedroom, but it still was cluttery. And this room was very cluttery, but everything was still very, very neat and clean. It just was so much stuff. But this was all Christmas decorations. All Christmas decorations. And then, okay. Oh yeah, I gotta hurry up before I forget. So then I proceeded to stand around over here near the hallway. And the sister was standing around. And she's like, hey, here, give me your phone number. And she pulled out this little piece of paper. And I wrote down my phone number. And I totally remember exactly what I wrote down. 417. And I even wrote it down, all clearly on this piece of paper. And I handed it back to her. And I was like, here, give it back to me, because I want to make sure I wrote it down. Because I told her, I just want to make sure it's right, because I don't write my phone number down a lot. So then I looked at it again, and it was all exactly, 417-908, blah, 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 blah. And then I noticed she had written down about 4 or 5 other friends of Kathy's. But she just wanted to write my number down, in case she ever needed to call me or whatever. And then she put the little piece of paper back in a little drawer that was right at the side of the hallway. That was the hallway, like right here. And, yeah, it was a pretty large house. A lot of old houses, were very, very big back then. But today, it's like people that live in those old-ass houses, like some of those old houses over there by the college. Like, how the fuck did they afford the utility bill, Plus, it would have a big old fucking creepy basement as well. Plus, 3 levels. How would they afford the utility bill? I have no idea. But, and this was a pretty large house, but it was only one level. Big, creepy ass dirt basement. It was all dirt. And it was very creepy. And, okay, the last part of the scenario. Hold on, let me just make sure I'm not forgetting anything up to this point. But like I say, and even in the scenario, I had clear ass visions of exactly like, or flashbacks, so to speak, exactly like what the front door screened in porch looked like. Because as far as I remember, I don't remember actually walking in at the beginning of the scenario. The scenario started with us back in her bedroom. But anyway, so it doesn't matter. But I had clear visions of the front porch, the way it looked in real life, and clear visions of the two entities, the two ghosts. But like I say, 19 years later, wait, hold on, how, 31? Yeah, about 19 years later, you know, they acted like they didn't want to talk about it, blah, 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 blah. They weren't still having activity. Like I say, these were the ghosts, the entities. But, and then, like I say, down in the dirt basement was the girl in the pink dress. But, okay, so, and so it makes me wonder, oh no, they wouldn't have died of a fire, because then the whole house would have been burnt or whatever. I wonder if they all died of like the, some kind of flu, you know, some kind of flu that they got back then, and they died, you know, because they didn't really have antibiotics and shit back then, I guess. But it makes me wonder if they died of the flu, you know, like influenza type of thing. But, okay, so the last part of the scenario, so I started having, clear visions of exactly where the mom lived down the street. And she lived in a small house, a one level, very small house. I mean, this house was like 3 to 4 times bigger than Kathy's mom's small house down the street. So I started having visions of like the mom's house down the street. And I was like, well, who lives, when I was talking to the sister and Kathy, I was like, who lives in your mom's house now? And they said, oh, there's a gay guy called like Mr. Twinkle or something like that. And I can't remember the name, but it was kind of a funny name. They're like, oh, Mr. Twinkle lives there now. And I knew that it was like a gay guy. And okay, how did I know that? I just somehow knew that. And it seemed like, I don't know, I just somehow knew that. And it seemed like I started to hear him talk. I started having clairaudience. Yeah, I started having clairaudience of him talking. And I knew he was a gay guy. His name was like Mr. Twinkles or something like that. They said, oh, Mr. Twinkles lives there now, and he works for oh man, I wish I could remember the name. It was the name of the orchestra, the Kansas City Orchestra. And I think it does actually have a name, but damn it, I cannot remember the name. And I doubt I'm gonna be able to ever remember it. But they're like, yeah, he just kind of drives back and forth from here to like, but it wasn't Kansas City in the scenario. In the scenario, he was definitely going to Kansas City, but it was called like, Willow Springs or something like that in the scenario. But he was clearly driving from Dearborn to Kansas City to go to the Kansas City Orchestra. He worked for the Kansas City Orchestra. But the orchestra hold on, let me see if it actually does have a name, because I thought some of them actually do have names, and it was a very clear name of the orchestra, the Kansas City Orchestra that he worked for. And they told me that he drove back and forth, and I was thinking in my head, well, that's kind of a far distance, you know? Okay, hold on. It was like, and it also, it had the name of like I don't know, like Willow Walk or something like that. Willow Walk Symphony or something like that. Well, let me see if it actually does have a name. The Kansas City Orchestra, because they may not even have names, but in the scenario they did. And I've been to the Kansas City Orchestra. I love it. I've been there at least 3 times. I love going to the Kansas City Orchestra around Christmas and Halloween. I've never been to the Springfield one. I mean, the Kansas City Symphony, or orchestra, whatever. But I don't think it really does have a name, but in the scenario, it did. Does Kansas City... Okay, hold on. What is the Kansas City Orchestra called? Kansas City, after being inspired by similar Columbia Jazz Orchestra. The term chamber orchestra is used to define the size of orchestra which is available to such composers. But anyway, it had a specific freaking name, and of course I cannot remember it. I cannot remember the specific name that Joel had put in the scenario. But they told me that he worked for the Kansas City Orchestra in the town of like Willow Springs, but basically he was driving from Dearborn to Kansas City because he worked for the Kansas City Orchestra. He played, he didn't work for it, he played in the Kansas City Orchestra. So he had to drive back and forth, which in real life, that's, that's about, well, from Dearborn to where I lived in Leawood, in Prairie Village, Kansas, it's about an hour. To downtown Kansas City, it might be a little less, maybe. But anyway, it's about an hour from Dearborn, Missouri to Kansas City. But, yeah, so that was kind of funny. And like I say, I actually heard him talking. His voice talking in the scenario, in my clairaudience head or whatever. And he sounded very gay. So that was all kind of funny, but I wish I remember the fucking name. See, it pisses me off when I can't remember details. But it was something like the Willow Walk Symphony or something like that. Willow Walk Orchestra or something like that. Yeah, there's a lot of Willows. Well, I did actually have Willow Springs on the brain, many times before this experience too, so Joel put a lot of that in the scenario, but it was something like Willow Walk Symphony or something like that. But yeah, they both were like freaking trippy experiences, man. Because that was kind of weird, because I saw these people clearly in the scenario, and then when I woke up, I'm like, I never did see them in real life. I mean, I would have remembered that if I would have saw them standing there. I only felt them in the parlor in real life when I went to the parlor. And, but I clearly saw these ghosts, man. And so that was kind of weird in the scenario. I clearly saw them. And, but like I said, I talked to the sister about I was like, don't you remember in the parlor? And then as far as I remember, I did actually go walking in the parlor, and it was a little bit different in the scenario than in real life. But they just wanted to deny, or they wanted to not have anything to do with that anymore. They didn't want to talk about it, blah, 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 blah. But anyway, so I'm sure I'm forgetting a little bit because both these experiences were very, very, very long. And I'm sure I'm forgetting a little bit of the first experience too. But anyway, they were both freaking trippy experiences, but they were fun. Shazy, okay, let's watch Dr. G. We're watching Dr. G. And then I'll probably conk out and take a nap.